David, first off, we hear, the phrase well-being all the time. Um, can you define well-being for all of us?
Yeah, I think it's so difficult, right? Well-being is kind of a catchphrase we hear all the time, and there are the academic definitions. The way that I like to think about it is it's really about doing the things that can help you be the best version of yourself. There is no perfect. We live in a world today where people like to paint a picture that this everything's Instagram perfect, but the reality is all of our lives are challenging in different ways, and so understanding that, finding the ways that we can be the best version of ourselves despite that, and find that inner peace and strength to move on, like the warriors. I love the fact that we call these P.A.D warriors. That's fantastic. That is truly the path to thriving and living a fully functioning and emotionally fulfilling life.
I said, it's just tough to maintain that feeling of well-being. Once you get that life-altering diagnosis, such as peripheral artery disease, is it possible to get it back? Is it possible to gain back that feeling of well-being? And if so, how do we do it?
Well, how presumptuous of me to speak for people that have received that diagnosis, right? The experts are here talking to each other. And that's honestly probably one of the most powerful things that can happen, is the spirit of connection and learning from each other. I haven't been diagnosed with P.A.D. I have my own issues and problems to wrestle with, but I do know that whatever they are, when you feel like you're not alone, that's the first step toward healing. Because so often you receive these bad news, this bad information, you feel like you're the only one feeling and experiencing that. So I really feel like this conference, this organization, is a way of connecting and sharing people's individual stories of both triumph and tragedy, frankly, are the way to heal, because it's only through community that we can really be our best self. I love, before this started, hearing about warm toes, and how wonderful it is. These are the things that everyone wants to hear. And so I do think it's possible. We see it through other people, and probably in this community, people have found their way to moments where they thrive and moments when they struggle. I think the most important part of that, Kim, for me, my journey, is learning that you're not going to get there and stay there. It's changeable and dynamic. The world's always changing. Mm-hmm. And so understanding to enjoy the moments you have, connect when you need help so you can pick yourself back up, but is really important. And that, to me, has been the path to thriving in the future.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, that it is like a roller coaster, and you have to just embrace those moments that you do feel good, and remember those moments, and know that you do prefer, even in those moments where you don't feel good, to say, okay, own it. I don't feel good, but I know what it feels like to feel good. And I do prefer to feel better. And I know what it takes to feel better, even if it's just getting a latte, or having your favorite piece of fruit, or calling that friend, or jumping into one of the online support groups and saying, hey, I need a friend right now.
Yeah, I tell you that one of the things that's really, we focus a lot on at Thrive, that's tied specifically to P.A.D, is this focus on inflammation, right? And when you think about that inflammation being the root cause, and we think a lot about the impact of stress and its role in inflammation, stress and anxiety, depression. And so it's kind of that, these are the precursors that begin to get the body all stirred up. And, we talk a lot about that. It's not stress that's the enemy so much as cumulative stress. It's this accumulation of stress over time. So one of the things that we share a lot with folks is this idea of something called box breathing, which is really when you're in a moment, everybody says, give me a second, or give me a minute to collect yourself. There's actually a technique that was developed by the Navy SEALs called box breathing. It's also called 4x4 breathing. And so we really preach this for everyone. But it's when you're in one of those moments when it feels bad. It's a simple technique where you simply exhale, completely empty your lungs, and pause for a moment, and then inhale to a 4 count, pause for a 4 count, and exhale for a 4 count. And if you do that 3 times in a row, you actually reset your brain chemistry toward almost a meditative state. It was developed by Navy SEALs to deal with PTSD, but it's applicable to everyone. And so if people can Google it, you can search it up and try it yourselves. In those moments when you're feeling really overloaded, take a moment to do something like that. Can really stop you from maybe doing some habits or behaviors that would set you on a bad track and make that spiral of things get worse.
Can we take one moment and do 1 count and just walk us through? Because we see a lot of them on there. Just coach us through just one quick set.
Of course. Okay. The most important part is the first part here. I want everyone just to take a breath and exhale until your lungs are completely empty. That's the most important part. So exhale. Then pause. Now inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you can do that in a cycle at least 3 times, it just resets your brain chemistry. A lot of people use it if they wake up at night full of anxiety or worry. If you can just focus on the breath, come back to the breath, go through that discipline, it does it. So it's really been powerful. A lot of people use it all the time. So hopefully you'll find value in that.
That was fantastic. One of the issues though with any disease is with identity. I mean, to your clinicians, your disease is your identity, but defining yourself as that disease actually hinders your healing. So how can we manage the disease, but separate ourselves from the disease in order to thrive? I mean, especially when it's in front of us each and every moment of every day.
Yeah, there's a concept that we call reframing, which is really it's how you think about it, right? And there's how you feel, and then there's a story you tell yourself. And so to your point, you don't want to be your disease, right? You are much more than your disease, just like you're more than your job. You know, you are a human being with all the love and aspiration of people that you love and who love you in the world. And they don't love you because of the disease. They love you. So understanding that that's not letting that define you is part of reframing the story you tell yourself. Now there's a technique that's called the narrative method or narrative medicine. And I'm not an expert in this by any means, but it's really about the power of storytelling, right? And the stories we tell ourselves become really important. And so paying attention to the stories you're telling yourself and how that defines you has a huge impact on how you feel going forward. One technique that we talk about that helps with that is actually scheduling worry time. Now, I didn't believe this when I first heard it, but it actually works. It's been proven by the scientists. If you actually set time each day and you sit down and write down everything that you're worried about in say 15, 20 minutes, instead of worrying about it in the back of your mind as the day goes on, so you schedule worry time, it actually writing it down and putting that aside lowers your stress. Not only that, but the fact of writing helps you think more concretely about the story you're telling yourself. So I would say reframe and pay attention to the words you use. Schedule some time to write it down, because when you have to write it, it's very intentional. It becomes alive. And then you can see what you're telling yourself and reframe it during that worry time.
I love that, because then during the times when you start to worry throughout the day, you can say, okay, not right now. My worry time's at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, it sounds kind of odd.
I don't have to worry.
What we call ruminators, right? We can just sit on things and stir them around. But if you do that, it really does help.
I love that. I think that's such a great technique. Also I want to address one more thing, because I know we're limited on time, but there are so many temptations in this world, and also long-time habits, some with emotional connections, that are tough to break. Even if we know we need to make better choices, we don't sometimes. It's just hard to see, that one choice to have a hot fudge sundae or cigarette, doesn't have an outward facing like instant reaction. So you think, well, hey, what the heck? Why not? Why can't I have that right now? But those moments really do add up. And the same goes for like one healthy salad or one walk around the block. You may not get enough of an instant gratification to really make it a new daily habit. So what is your best advice for managing the thirst of instant gratification?
Yeah, so we have a concept we call microsteps, right? So you use the phrase better choices. Better choices is a phrase we used at Walmart all the time. It's really this idea, if you can just try to make one better choice today than you did yesterday, something so small that over time that progress adds up, right? So microsteps are just daily habits that are really too small to fail. So if you can break something down, that really helpful. It's also though important to know that perfection is not a lifestyle, right? No one's perfect all the time. You can't live it. So just pick something, make steady progress over time, and don't beat yourself up, right? This is about being forgiving. It's about supporting and not judging. So don't judge. I like to say, don't let a lapse become a collapse, right? It's simply a lapse. So don't judge, make it really small. Just focus on steady progress. One better choice today than yesterday, knowing that perfection is not a lifestyle. But most importantly, Kim, is this community, right? That only works when you have community of people that support you and get you a little bit, right? Because everyone's going through stuff. And so having people that you can model and learn from is the most important way to make progress. We believe peer stories, the folks on this call helping each other and sharing their stories. This is why, Melissa, your courage in sharing that poem is so impactful for me. It's everyone who's here who's willing to share what they're going through with everyone else you have no idea individually the impact that makes on other people. And they will learn from you on both your successes and your struggles on ways to overcome things. So that's kind of the way we break it down. Don't make it so big. Micro steps, one better choice today than yesterday, and then just speak with others when you're struggling and when you're succeeding.
Yeah. And it's really important, no matter what happens, right, David, to somehow find hope, whatever that means to you, to always have some sort of faith really at your foundation, because it doesn't serve you to feel any different. It doesn't serve you to live in doom and gloom. It only serves you to have some sort of hope or some sort of faith. Can you talk about that?
Hope only dies in when you're alone, right? When you're with other people, when you know there are other people out there, you feel connected. You know, that's when you find your way back, right? But when you find yourself wanting to be more isolated, we do some work looking at depression and other types of comorbidities relative to mental health. And disconnecting is the greatest risk for someone to relapse or start to have serious mental health issues. So that's important to know, not just for yourself, right? Because we all have that, what Ariana Huffington, our founder, calls it the noisy roommate in my head, right? We all have that voice in our head that's speaking that bad stuff to us, right? But so we can't see it. So knowing it for others too, if you see people you love or each other that are starting to pull away, go get them, right? Stay connected, you know, because that's really important to understand. So Kim, you're right. It's about hope, knowing not every day is going to be perfect, you know, but we're going to get better. And events like this are incredibly inspirational for me and hopefully for the folks who are participating as well.
You're definitely inspiring. David Hoke, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And for anyone who wants to read some inspiring articles, they can go to your website.
Yeah, go to thriveglobal.com and you can log right in and see all the articles you want. So no problem at all.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate you.
Wish everybody a great day. And again, thanks for all you're doing. It's wonderful to see.
Thank you.